So this week we learned about transfer, and one of the things that Dr. Bob asked us to do was to connect this to what we learned previously, and that was novice and expert and what the difference is. So the difference between novice is you don't have a great deal of expertise in an area where you're not carrying over all the knowledge you have to an area. You don't know when, where, or why to do it. And an expert has greater experience and can better transfer knowledge from past experiences or learning to a situation. And that's what separates a novice from an expert. And there's two types of expert. There's one that can apply knowledge to a particular area that is very similar, and there's one that can take things that are seemingly unrelated to things and connect those things that are kind of unrelated and then apply it to a situation where it is related. And so what separates those classes is the ability to transfer. And I found this really, really interesting. And the definition of transfer that we got from the TED Talk was learning. Transfer of learning is the ability to apply learning from one situation to another. An example he gave was history, but I'm a math major, so this would be an example of near transfer opposed to far. So in math classes, you're taught early on how to add, subtract, divide, multiply, and so then you move on to calculus and you're taught formulas and how to read graphs and stuff like that. And now in my math classes, I'm having to transfer all of that knowledge that I learned through algebra and then calculus and then other various math classes that I have, and then and I'm having to apply that into a math class where I'm not really doing that much math, but I'm having to conceptualize what those math formulas and things that I learned actually mean, and then be able to prove things based off of that. So I thought that was really interesting for me, is what transfer actually means for me and my major. So another thing that we learned are about conditions for transfer and teaching for transfer. And conditions for transfer is when teachers understand what the conditions are needed for knowledge and skills to be learned in a context and then retrieved in a situation. So that means like you teach students vocabulary words, and so one way you can teach it and test it is you can give a vocabulary test where you recite the definition. That would be memory. So transfer would be where teachers teach vocabulary, and then instead of giving a vocabulary test, they tell the students to use these words in the sentences in an essay or something like that. So you're getting two different types of transfer. You're getting transfer of knowledge, so you're actually understanding what the word is and how to use it correctly in a sentence. And then two, you're using your writing skills from a writing class, which you may or may not be in. You could be doing vocabulary for history and using your writing skills. So you're transferring your writing skills to a history class also. And then teaching for transfer is whenever the teacher develops ideas about how to facilitate transfer in their own classrooms. So the example I just gave about the vocabulary test would be an example of a teacher teaching for transfer. Also, we learned about 5 teaching strategies for transfer. And one is explicit. Apply what they learned each day for other parts of their lives. So try to be able to connect the information to something that is applicable in their life so that they're more motivated and interested in learning it. Um, an example of this would be you're learning persuasive writing in your writing class, and you relate it to why this is important. For one day, you might be um, trying to get a raise and you're trying to persuade your boss to give you a raise. The second was group learning. Experience is more likely to happen outside of the classroom, so it's more relative to how you operate in the real world. Reflection is important. Which learning strategies work best for them, so you can talk about that to them and teach for that. Um, Use analogies and metaphors is also an important component for teaching for transfer because it helps them conceptualize the concepts and think about real world ways they can apply it. Generalizing is after analyzing an example. After analyzing women's right movement, what does it take to create a successful social change movement? So that's a way to try to relate it to a real world example so that they can understand that. And whenever you test, it's best to test for when, where, and why to un- for a situation. So you want to try to make sure the student understands when, where, and why to apply a concept, and that's how you promote transfer in your classes.